It takes some longer than others, but they always come to the same conclusion. They walk up to the 4,000-pound cast iron giant, curious. What does it do? How does it work? Is it loud? I begin explaining the operations of an early form of the internal combustion engine, how a coil rotates through a magnetic field, creating voltage high enough to jump sparks. The crucial cams and shafts, controlled by counterweights and centrifugal force, holding the fire at bay in time like gears in a clock. The 10-inch piston compressing fuel and air into a hot admixture. The cam rotates, pushing the rod forward, building tension in the coil. It begins to rotate through the field, eddy currents growing towards the inevitable release, as 1,000 years of human engineering roars to life. They walk away with a newfound respect, not for the machine foreign to them only moments ago, but for the men who conceived of it. It takes some longer than others, but they always come to the same conclusion. A witness to exceptional intellectual creative power and natural ability, these men were geniuses. This is the story of Elijah McCoy, the man who greased the wheels of the Industrial Revolution. Air, fuel, and spark. When you're working on an engine, these are the first things you check. I remember this lesson from high school mechanics class. However, and I'm sure you'll agree, there's a fourth, and perhaps it's the most important. For without this step, the others cease to matter, and the entire system will literally grind to a halt. And nobody knew this better than Elijah. He was the fireman and oiler on a steam locomotive for the Michigan Central Railroad. For our story to go any further, we need to switch tracks to an entirely different railroad. One built on hope and compassion rather than sweat and coal. Without these tracks, laid in secret, shielded in Providence, Elijah would have never been born. George and Mildred McCoy were slaves from Louisville, Kentucky. We don't have much information to go on, but can surmise that their escape went something a little like this. A free black man known to the Underground Railroad as a conductor snuck onto the plantation pretending to be a slave. Over a short period of time, he would inspire and organize those willing to risk what little they had left to take a chance at freedom. The journey would be difficult, traveling mostly by foot and only at night. On a path so difficult to traverse, the pursuers reckoned no man would ever go that way. They would hide in safe houses and basements of churches, sometimes for weeks until the coast was clear. Then they would do it all again. Another 10 miles, another safe house, a new conductor. This went on for months. Compartmentalization was the key. No conductor knew another's business, and they didn't ask. The lack of information was the only security. If one group was caught, they simply didn't possess the information that could cause the chain reaction that would bring down the system. George and Mildred eventually made it to Canada, where they settled for a few years, free to raise a family. In 1852, they moved with their 12 children 30 miles outside of Detroit, Michigan, where George himself would become a conductor in the Underground Railroad, risking it all to provide others with the opportunity afforded to a free black man of the day. I'm fairly certain anyone watching my channel can relate. Beginning at a young age, Elijah showed a strong interest in mechanics and a deep desire to understand why and how the machines of the mid-1800s worked. The segregated schools of the time had no infrastructure in place for such things, so Elijah learned what he could from whoever was willing to teach. In 1859, at the age of 15, his parents arranged for him to travel to Edinburgh, Scotland for an apprenticeship in mechanical engineering. After returning home from Michigan, despite his qualifications, Elijah was unable to find work as an engineer due to racial barriers. Skilled professional positions were simply not available for black men at the time, regardless of their training or background. He took what work he could. For the third time today, the wheels of the Michigan Central Railroad, along with all of its passengers and cargo, slowed to a stop. The fireman wiped the coal dust and sweat from his brow, traded his shovel for a bucket of grease and oil, and set about his business. The train spent just as much time stopped for maintenance as it did rolling towards its destination, but it had to be done. If there was another way, surely the men responsible for this marvel of modern engineering would have figured it out. Why hadn't they figured it out? The hourly interruptions of the lubrication process is far behind them as the miles the train had ran since commissioned. They had simply just moved on. There had to be a better way. A way to lubricate the train while it was underway. So Elijah set his mind to the task because it had to be done. In a small shop in Ypsilanti, Michigan, Elijah began his work. He didn't have the best tools or equipment, but what he did have was a problem, and an unrelenting drive to solve it. In 1872, he developed a lubricating cup that could automatically drip oil when and where needed. This design meant machines of all kinds no longer had to be shut down to perform the arduous task of lubrication. Factories could run non-stop, and the army of grease monkeys, usually children, could be replaced by a few men with oil cans. He received a patent for the device later that year. The invention was an enormous success, and orders came in from railroad companies all over the country. Not having the capital for mass production, nor the means to secure investors, Elijah would license his patent to manufacturers, and they in turn would produce the oilers. This provided Elijah with the financial means he required to continue his creative process. He didn't stop with the lubricating cup, and some 60-odd patents later, the son of fugitive slaves left his mark on more than just the greasy gears of the Industrial Revolution. A mark that would become the gold standard of quality, synonymous with the real deal, the genuine article, except no imitations asked for by name. The conductors knew it, I know it, and you know it too. If it had Elijah's mark, it was the real McCoy. I gotta tell you, I love that story. Anytime I'm messing with these old hit-and-miss engines, cleaning up and replacing the oilers or working with the grease cups, this is what's always running through my head, is how cool this story is. Interestingly enough, the real McCoy may not actually be the real McCoy. So you all are probably familiar with the Hatfield and McCoy's feud from the 1880s. I'm sure you all know about a Pennsylvanian wildcatter, don't even know what that is, of the name of McCoy, who diverted nitroglycerin from job site to safecrackers. He supplied the real McCoy to distinguish them from homemade, less reliable explosives. Or perhaps maybe it was just really, really good drugs. Yep, that's correct. While not historically accurate, I'd like to think that story goes a little like this. Hey, you want some crack? Why, yes, indeed I fancy the sweet release of a fine Colombian smolder nugget. Cool. What you want? But wait, aren't you a rapscallion of ill repute? How do I know it's the good stuff? Just picked it up from Sebastian Eleanor McCoy myself. Got the label on it and everything. The real McCoy? Shut up and take my nickel. There's literally like 10 competing stories for the title of the real McCoy. The one thing that Elijah McCoy has that none of the others seem to have is that it is, I guess I would say, it's an industrial setting, right? And a lot of Americana and a lot of American history or American slang comes out of the workforce. And a large portion of our workforce at that time was working in the industrial setting. And this was revolutionary technology. The obvious side of this is that it's what it stands for. It stands for the original, the best, the best of. And I can't imagine any of these other 10 ideas competing for this to be an original anything. They just don't have, they're missing the key ingredient, the power of the originality of the real McCoy. So I hope that makes sense. It's not to say that the vernacular did not exist before this. It was just something that was relatable and then became something else. You know, words and meaning change over time through culture, and in today's society, the real McCoy isn't talking about a person at all. It's talking about the real deal. And I think I can put this to bed in my own mind, that Elijah McCoy is actually the real McCoy. The research in these videos is so much fun. I've always been a huge fan of history, and I came across this quote, and I wanted to share it with you because it's very interesting to me. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the quote, or the saying, I guess I should say, necessity is the mother of invention. It's actually an interpretation of the dialogue in Republic by Greek philosopher Plato. The original text is, a need or problem encourages creative effort to meet the need or solve the problem. Necessity is the mother of invention. I also found a quote by Agatha Christie that it kind of made me shake my head, and I wanted to share it with you. She said, I don't think necessity is the mother of invention. Invention, in my opinion, arises directly from idleness, possibly also from laziness, to save oneself trouble. Taking a look at the story that I just told you of one inventor and the countless hours and commitment he gave in his life to making sure that he had given something to humanity. And I don't see in that any idleness or laziness at all, nor do I see that in any other inventions. I can absolutely say that my car makes my life easier, but it makes my life easier in a sense that I'm able to get other things done. I don't simply lay on my bed because I have a bed or because I now have time because I can get to work or home quicker. And I don't think a lot of you do either. So Agatha Christie, thank you, but no thank you. I think Plato's got you on this one. Guys, if you like this video, please share it on Facebook, share it on Reddit, share it on YouTube, share it to your grandmother. I don't care what you do, but share this video. Also, do me one more solid. Vote for the good of the land on the American Rotary American Made Contest website. I'm going to put a link in the description down there. You just shoot on over and click Justin Mayrow, Good of the Land. It will help us so much. So if you haven't seen our American Made video, it's like 3 back. I'll put it at the end of this video and you can watch that. It's another historical restoration. Video's not over yet. Watch what I do with this motor. All right.